my name is Oleg Collins, and this is my project presentation for data visualization. So as you might be able to tell from my screen currently, my domain of application is centered around baseball, the MLB. I played baseball for most of my life growing up, but eventually I kind of fell out of touch with it. But now recently, since I'm an applied statistics master's student, so I've been looking around for pet data projects, data analysis projects here and there. And I remembered there's this movie, this famous statistics baseball movie called Moneyball. So I was like, that was a really cool movie. So I started looking more and more into the area of baseball statistics, and it turns out this is a huge field and has the very cool name of sabermetrics. And over the course of the semester, I've slowly started getting back into the game. I think one of the analysis I did for one of our projects early in the semester centered around baseball. I've gotten a subscription to MLB TV, so now I can watch all the games whenever I want. As a consequence, it's not so surprising that I've also started getting recommended baseball YouTube videos. One such video talked about this 2021 ban on sticky substances in the MLB, and it briefly mentioned how it had an impact on the game. So now that I have statistical knowledge and I can perform data analysis, I can import data sets, clean them, visualize them. I thought with the opportunity this project presents, I thought it would be interesting for me to get into the data myself and see how this sticky substance ban impacted the game. So what is the sticky substance ban? So in baseball, pitchers can throw a variety of pitches, and each pitch requires a different grip on the ball. The pitches that tend to move around a lot tend to have more unorthodox, uncomfortable grips. So it's harder to actually hold on to the ball and make an accurate pitch. Now, over the years, pitchers have secretly smuggled in a variety of illegal sticky substances in order to help them maintain a better grip. With the sticky substance on their hand, they can do that uncomfortable and unorthodox grip for a ball that's going to move around a lot, but they don't have to worry as much because their hand's glued to the ball. They can just fling it as hard as they can or get as much spin on it as they want. Now, the sticky substance ban is more like a rule. Well, sticky substances have, of course, been banned. But what this is, it's more of a rule where now officials will constantly check pitchers for signs of illegal sticky substances. After they pitch an inning, they'll pull the pitcher over and they'll check his cap, the inside of his belt, the inside of his glove. They'll check his hands. They'll check the back of his neck. They'll check everywhere. So I think a lot of people agree now that it is now very hard to use an illegal sticky substance and be able to get away with it. So the goal of this analysis, again, is to see if and or how this new rule has affected pitching in the MLB. Now, I want to quickly note that there is a legal sticky substance pitchers can use, and it's called rosin. Players need at least something to combat the sweat. They're out there sweating in the hot sun, and they're trying to throw a ball 100 miles per hour. Their hands are going to get slippery, so they just need at least something to help combat that. However, pitchers have been mixing rosin with stuff like sunscreen, salt from sunflower seeds, and whatever else in the dugout in order to create a stickier substance than rosin alone. Now, before this new rule, such a kind of mixture of sunscreen, rosin, whatever, it was legal. But now, with this new rule in place, mixing rosin with anything, period, is now expressly prohibited. So it's going to be interesting to see how pitching has changed since a lot of pitchers, it wasn't banned. Sunscreen rosin wasn't banned. It was such a fundamental tool for many pitchers. So it should be interesting to see how this new ban affected pitching. So as you can see in my first viz, it kind of provides an overview of the domain, and it's also going to contain a first stab at answering our question. So from this viz, we can clearly and precisely see the location of each MLB team. And if we hover over a team's icon, we see that a text box pops up. This text box contains the team's full name. So now we have the team logo and the team's full name. And then we have several lines below it. So we see this team is the Kansas City Royals, and their 2018 spin rate average was 88. All the way down to 2023, their average spin rate is in 87.4. Now, spin rate is going to be very important. But first, we got to go back to 2016. 2016, Major League Baseball implemented a high-tech gear and super powerful software into all its stadiums. And this gear or software is called StatCast. So what StatCast allows them to do is they can record all kinds of crazy statistics. I mean, they can see what type of pitch it was, how fast it was going. They can calculate what was the angle of the ball off the bat after it was hit, how much of the bat actually hit the ball, and most importantly of all, for us, they can get the spin rate of the ball. So all this data is freely available at statcast.com. So the reason spin rate is important is because the use of sticky substances allows pitchers to have a better grip on the ball. That means they can fling it harder, and thus their spin rate increases with the use of such substances. So now that such substances have been banned, spin rate will be a good way to check if there's been an impact, because if a lot of people were using such substances and it was improving their pitching, then now that it's banned, we should see a decrease in spin rates. So now we're going to just look over a couple teams. We see 2019 was the season before they implemented the sticky substance ban. 2021 was the season right after. They implemented the rule like right before the 2021 season. I didn't include the 2020 season because of COVID. It was cut super short. So we see for the Kansas City Royals, their average spin rate in 2019 was 88, and their average spin rate in 2021 was 89. So it actually went up. If we go over here to the Rangers, the 2019 was 89.4, 2021 was 88.4. So their spin rate went down. If we go over to, say, the Athletics, we see in 2019 it was 88.9, and in 2021 it's 88.8. So it went down slightly. And what happens if you go around and you hover over all these teams, we won't really get a conclusive answer. Some teams' spin rate went up, some went down, some go up and then down, some go down and up. So perhaps it's not the best way to answer our question. And it makes sense because teams, they trade players get injured, players get rotated. So, averaging the team spin rate and then doing a year-by-year comparison is probably not the most stable method. But it was a good stab. It got us established. And before we go on to the second viz, I wanted to show the second interactive part of this viz. So what this viz does is it allows us to zoom in on a team's logo, and it will show us all the way down to their stadium. And when you zoom in, it just doesn't show a blank slate. It actually shows a very intricate map of the surrounding area. So we can see their Citi Field for the New York Mets, and we can see the surrounding area. So I don't know who else is going to use this, but it would be interesting if they want to look around for other points of interest, or maybe they went to Citi Field game as a kid and they can find the hotel where they stayed at and walk to the field. So that concludes the first viz. So instead of here we analyzed entire team spin rates, I thought, what if we go kind of to the other extreme and we analyze individual pitches? So if we pull up this viz, we can see that is a parallel coordinate line graph. So let me explain the viz real quick. So each line corresponds to an individual pitcher. So if we pick this line here at the top, we see that is that pitcher's, whoever he may be, that's his average spin rate for fastballs in 2018. We can see his average spin rate for fastballs in 2019 and then 21 and so forth. So I thought this would be a good way to pick up if there was an effect caused by the sticky substance ban. If we see a lot of lines, they're kind of random, and then after 2019, so the ban gets implemented, if a lot of the spin rates go down. So let's analyze these different line charts one by one. We see something immediately very interesting for the fastball. We see it's kind of random, and then from 2022 to now 2023, almost every pitcher's spin rate has increased. And as I went through this analysis, analyzed more data, I came up with an explanation, for a plausible explanation for this. Since the sticky substances have been banned, pitches, as we'll see, the changeup and the curve are harder to throw. They're less accurate. It's more of a risk to throw one. So what do pitchers do? They must now rely on other pitches. Namely, now instead of being able to rely on a really good curveball, pitchers have to have a really good fastball. So they have to throw a fastball fast enough and be able to blow it by the hitter. So perhaps with the sticky substance bans, pitchers have been having to practice and perfect their fastball, which explains why the spin rate for that pitch has gone up. If we go to the two-seam fastball, we see kind of a similar story. We see 2019 into 21 and 22, there is a slight increase in spin rate. Now, two-seam fastball is kind of like a fastball. It's not quite as fast, but it also moves just a little bit at the end. It will tend to sink a little bit. So it's kind of like an off-speed pitch. An off-speed pitch is what's referred to as anything that's not a fastball. So again, perhaps as pitchers haven't been able to throw changeups or curves as much because the sticky substance ban, maybe they've been relying more on two seams. Now the fastball and the two seam, they have really stable grip. So using a sticky substance really shouldn't impact the spin rate on those two pitches. Now, if we go to changeups, we see something very interesting. We see there's a clear decrease from 2019 through 2020 down in 2022. I think there's a slight rise here into 2023 because I think the sticky substance got banned and then pitchers' spin rates everywhere for changeups just decreased. So I think that's a very good evidence of that the ban had an effect on pitching in the MLB. Now I think it got banned, spin rates went down, and then 2022 into 2023, pitchers perhaps were practicing their changes more, getting used to throwing it without a sticky substance. So perhaps that's why we see a slight increase. And we'll see a similar story for the curveball, and we see that there's a clear linear decrease from after the ban. After 2019, there's a decrease. And the interesting thing is for curveballs, you want to put as much spin on the ball. So the fact that we're seeing spin rate decreases after the ban, I think is highly significant evidence towards the fact that this ban is having an effect. It's decreasing spin rates for some pitches. If we go to the slider, the curve, and the changeup are the holy trinity of off-speed pitches. So I thought, well, after the change in curve were going down, perhaps the slider spin rate would also go down. But we see actually after 2019, 2021, 2022, it actually increases slightly. And I was a bit confused by this. And then I Googled the grip for a slider, and it turns out the grip for a slider is a lot more stable than it is for a curve or a changeup. Curves and changeups have notoriously difficult, uncomfortable grips, but the slider, not so much. So perhaps now with the sticky substance bans, players won't be able to throw changes or curves as well or as accurate. So they're having to rely on different pitches. So they had to rotate and start perfecting their slider, getting better at slide, or throwing more two seams and definitely throwing more fastballs. So I think when you take all these charts together into account, I think they provide decently strong evidence that there has indeed been an effect by the ban of using such substances and implementing those checks. Not only has it affected spin rates, I think it's also affected pitch popularity. I think sliders and two seams and fastballs are pitches that pitchers are having to throw more often since they can't throw these other two. Now, kind of in order to confirm this or support this evidence, I did a third viz. So on the right, it's a heat map, obviously. So on the right, we have all the pitchers. And then along the bottom, we have the different pitch types. And the cells are color-coded by spin rate drop-off. So I calculated that pitcher's spin rate in 2019, the season right before the ban. I calculated, say, their fastball spin rate. And then I calculated their 2021 spin rate, which is the season right after the ban. And I subtracted the two to get their drop-off. So a more purple bluish color means that from 2019 through 2021, their spin rate decreased. A more red color means their spin rate for that pitch actually increased. And we can see, just taking a general look at it, a not so small portion of the cells are tinted a bit purple. And I think this backs up the claims we made based on the second viz that there was an effect. Some spin rates for pitches did decrease, and we can see that maybe a fourth to a third of these total cells are tinted purple. So that means definitely a good amount of pitchers got affected by this ban. Their spin rates for some pitches decreased.